I like this photo. This was taken in 1956. It shows a 5 megabit hard drive being loaded onto a Pan Am aeroplane, and you can see that it took 6 people to get it on the plane. This morning, single-handedly, I stepped onto a bus carrying 128 gigabits, and that was just my phone, count my iPad as well, and I was packing a quarter of a terabyte. It was Tom Stoppard, the British author, who captured an eternal truth when he wrote, "Every age thinks it's the modern age, this one really is." And every generation believes it's breaking new ground. Yet the statement also harbours a grain of truth, a grain of doubt, I should say, about whether this is really the case. And a brief study of the history of innovation suggests that new entrants seldom totally supersede established incumbents. And who would have put money on the enduring popularity of bicycles 100 years after the introduction of motorised transport? Yet our individual and collective desire for new and different experiences means that we do often place a premium on new ideas, often at the expense of tried and trusted options. Now, Marshall McLuhan, I'm sure you all heard of him, introduced the concept of the global village and predicted the arrival of the internet 54 years ago. He referred to the internet as the extension of consciousness, and he said that it would include television as its content, not as its environment, and he said that it would transform television into an art form. Now, clearly many in the television industry will argue that television has been an art form since before the arrival of the internet. Equally, some internet evangelists, as we've already seen from some of the headlines shown earlier by Massimo, disagree with McLuhan and prefer to proclaim the death of television, and in particular linear television. But let's face it, this isn't a new assertion by media owners keen to grab a slice of television advertising budgets. And so we return to the importance of people watching in the internet age, which is the title for my presentation this morning. And this reflects the challenge of delivering a television audience currency in our modern age. People watching might seem quite a dated concept, but it's really important because our customers want to know what people do. Much of the magic of the internet is that it's removed friction from daily life, but it's also created many new opportunities. But we have to remember that early claims that the internet is the most accountable advertising platform ever have unraveled. And the industry is increasingly remembering the good news that nobody's yet developed an app to replace people, the people who think and feel things about the decisions they make, whether it be which television programs they watch or which brand of deodorant they buy. And these decisions are triggered by an algorithm that is altogether different from one that anyone in this room can create. It's one that none of us can control. Each and every day, thousands of biochemical algorithms are triggered inside human beings. Algorithms that determine the choices we make. They're the kind of algorithms that tell us instinctively that a £15 bottle of wine must be better than a £7 bottle of wine. I actually read the other day, you might have heard of Dan Ariely, who's a renowned behavioural economist, and he once proved in tests of various placebo medicines that human beings found the more expensive fake medicines work better than the cheaper fake medicines. Work that one out. Now, Facebook's recent admission that it's been overstating video viewing time by as much as 80% has reinforced the trust issues that the industry has with online measurement. We've already heard a little bit about viewability and click fraud, which are real and present issues. And equally, Procter & Gamble's recent public acknowledgement that it's gone too far in precision targeting is further evidence that marketing effectiveness is about more than just demonstrating a click-through rate. Big proprietary data sets championed by internet players might well account for direct response transactional activity, but they can't prove how people think and feel about brands. And advertisers need to understand this, while they also need to be able to determine the relative value of different communication options. And this is very tricky if you have to rely on a range of proprietary data sets. It's also difficult if you don't have standard metrics. Advertisers need objective, trusted evidence of which people have seen their advertising messages. And this is where joint industry currencies, such as BARB, come into their own. In the UK, the television and advertising industry invests £7 billion each year in the production and distribution of programme and commercial content. And BARB provides audience numbers that are integral to justifying the vast majority of this investment. We deliver the currency on who has watched what. And some of our more vocal critics from internet companies sometimes question how such a large investment can be accounted for on a sample of 5,100 homes. But to criticise BARB is to criticise the industry that those same companies aspire to be a part of. We represent the collective values of the advertising and television industry. We collect and report data to transparent standards that not only remove much of the guesswork behind decisions in the production and distribution of programme and commercial content, but they're also vital to assess relative value. And we've been setting the standards here in the UK for 35 years. And the distribution of television and video content through the internet is just the latest manifestation of an issue that BARB has been dealing with throughout those 35 years. And put simply, the question is, how do we deal with fragmentation? In 1983, we had one platform and 4 channels. It was simple, even though it might not have felt like it at the time. By 2000, we were contending with 3 different platforms: terrestrial, satellite, cable, in excess of 100 channels, and a growing amount of time shift viewing. Coming right up to the present, we've the added complexities of online delivery, a growing number of on-demand services, and getting on for 300 channels. And fragmentation means more instances of smaller audiences. And put simply, measuring smaller things needs bigger samples. And to that end, we have grown our panel from 3,000 homes back in the early 80s to 5,100 homes now. And our data is an accurate reflection of viewing patterns in the UK. Sky has stated publicly, frequently, that its regular interrogation of data from hundreds of thousands of its own set-top boxes reinforces the results that BARB deliver. That said, we're aware that we can improve data stability by having even larger samples, even if the law of diminishing returns does apply to research samples. But in building bigger samples, we have to be thoughtful when the business model behind our current panel has operational costs of £2,500 per home per annum. This is why our strategy is driven by the availability of data from the devices that people use to watch their favourite programmes. We're interested in data generated from web servers that each time content is watched through the internet. We're interested in return path data from platform set-top boxes that are attached to television sets across the country. And the benefits of device data are clear: cost-effective generation of large samples of data, which will lead to greater data stability and more predictability. But for all its strengths, device data won't tell us who is watching. And that is why a panel of people will always be BARB's centre of gravity, because advertisers and agencies want to know who is watching. So people data, complemented by device data, is at the heart of what we call Project Dovetail. So how are we getting on in stabilising our tower? Well, step 1 was achieved last autumn when we launched the first joint industry, fully audited measure of online TV viewing. This has been possible because of our work with broadcasters to embed software code into the apps that they've developed for their viewers. This is one environment in which I can use SDK as an acronym and know most people will get it. Now, this software code generates viewing statements each time an app is used to watch live or on-demand content. And the latest version of the report, which is freely available from the homepage of our website, covers over 30 platforms. And it's worth emphasising this is census data. It's not just the viewing of the people who live in our panel homes. Let me share some numbers with you. Now, nothing says no to me quite like a billion. And if we look back over the last 5 months, week by week, we can see that weekly viewing via TV players ranges from 1 to 1.4 billion minutes a week. Now, that's the sort of number that regularly attracts headlines in press releases, but let me put it in context. Typically, people spend 90 to 100 billion minutes watching television programmes on a TV set each week. So it looks like TV players are accounting for about 1 to 1.5% of total viewing. Now, we can break this down and we can see that on-demand viewing accounts for the majority of this. And it's relatively stable, albeit it's down marginally in the summer months, which is testimony to broadcasters not scheduling their best dramas at this time of year. And we'll see in a moment that dramas are one of the highest performers. It's also early evidence that viewing on computer devices has similar seasonality to viewing through TV sets. Now, the peaks, which you'll see are driven by the light blue, this is live streaming. And we can see that this coincides with major sporting events: Euro 2016, Wimbledon, the Olympics, and most recently, the Ryder Cup. We can see here how those events push live streaming up to higher levels and take overall TV player viewing up. Now, if we turn to the most watched programs, on the left we see the top 20 on demand. This is for week ending. Actually, sorry, the formatting's gone a bit here. We can only see the top 16 on one side, top 13 on the right for live streaming. But if you look at the most watched programs, it suggests that online television viewing isn't clustered in entirely unexpected ways. Soap operas and dramas perform well. They also regularly find their way into the top 50 of programs watched on TV screens. And if you look at the live streaming, sport dominates. And actually, if we did go down to 20, you'd see that 5 of the entries in the top 20 in this particular week was the Ryder Cup. If we look back over the whole of the last year since we started producing this report, the most watched on-demand programme has been the first episode of The Night Manager, which I'm sure many of you enjoyed. And the most watched live streaming event was England's game against Wales at Euro 2016. Before I move on from this, I should make a point about the metric here, which you'll see is called average programme streams. This metric is analogous to average audience, which is a metric that our customers are very used to working with when they're looking at the success of TV programmes. It represents the total amount of time that has been spent viewing, and it also takes into account the total number of people that have viewed. And we have had this metric ratified by JICWebs. We've had an equivalent metric ratified for commercials, and we intend to start working with the broadcasters to generate average ad streams alongside average programme streams. Our data also challenged the idea that TV player apps are mainly used on the move during rush hour. So this chart shows viewing levels by time of day, broken down by which device was used. So the first thing you'll see, if you're familiar with looking at TV viewing across the day, is it looks like a fairly typical TV viewing pattern with a big peak in the evening. The peak is slightly later. There is more viewing between 11 and midnight than there is in the early evening. If we were looking at viewing on TV sets, that would be the other way around. There is a slight bump in viewing in the morning on tablets between 7 and 8. Now, some of that will be commuters, although my hunch is that some of it also is parents using the tablet as a surrogate childminder while they're trying to get everybody ready for the day ahead. And you can see also that when it's broken down by device, tablets actually are used more than personal computers, while smartphones account for just over 1 in 7 of all viewing hours. And that last figure tends to be surprising to anyone with teenage children, but I should highlight that YouTube is not covered in this report. Now, all of this information reflects the number of devices, not people that are watching. So the next important step is understanding how people watch on desktop, laptop, and tablet computers. Now, to that end, we've now installed software meters on half of the eligible homes in our panel, eligibility being defined by having a broadband connection. Now, this isn't without its challenges, particularly because installing apps on devices is vulnerable to changes outside of the control of BARB and our research agencies. Our ability to track viewing is tested each time a new operating system is launched by Apple, Microsoft, or another of the technology giants. But we are starting to see some important evidence. Weekly reach seems to be at around 10%. Daily time spent viewing amongst those who do watch online is about an hour, but when you actually look at that as a percentage of all viewing across all devices, it's at about 0.5%. Laptops and desktops tend to be most popular with 16 to 34-year-olds, while kids and middle-aged are more likely to reach for their tablets to watch. Now, this information is really important because it will help us tie together the census data that I've just shared with you with the information from our panel. And a data fusion strategy naturally shines a very bright light on how best to blend art and science, because we all know data fusion is not simply a science. Now, transparency is in BARB's DNA. And this is really important as we enter a world that's increasingly driven by algorithms and engineers. And we can't be like the author of this equation, exhorting the reader to take a leap of faith halfway through the process. We can't simply deliver a black box branded with uncompromising acronyms and say, trust us. So to that end, we're in the final stages of a rigorous assessment of 2 prototype fusion solutions that have been developed, one by Kantar and one by Nielsen. Both of these solutions encourage our belief that we can deliver hybrid measurement as part of our evolving gold standard currency. That said, the prototype phase has absolutely brought to life that the task isn't straightforward, but I am optimistic that we'll conclude the specification and the negotiations for the Project Dovetail Fusion contract in time for an announcement, hopefully before the end of this year, so watch this space. We've also made progress on our ambition to work with return path data from set-top boxes that are found in homes around the UK. Now, we've done some pilot tests only at this stage, and we've worked with data from 15,000 Sky homes, which has confirmed a number of expected benefits. Integrating our gold standard people data with the larger sample of return path data homes has led to a significant increase in effective sample sizes, which in turn has led to greater stability in the data. And in the pilot, we saw a 25% reduction in zero rating spots. Now, more stable data means more confidence in business planning, whether it be program commissioning, inventory management, or even perhaps considering whether new demographics could be added for trading. And even some of the largest channels saw significant reductions in zero rating spots for major trading demographic groups such as housewives, men and children. So from this, the most ambitious part of our strategy, I believe, is to work with all platform operators on a return path data panel that complements our established people panel. The complexity of setting this up, pilot projects, agreeing co-licensing, etc., I don't think can be overestimated, but we're giving it a go. The last point on this slide also highlights an initiative. We're on the verge of issuing a tender for a device meter panel that would also enhance our core people panel. And we've seen from research agencies innovations with low-cost set meters and router meters that offer the potential to cost-effectively capture data from a nationally representative panel of homes. I'd also highlight that BARB, and nobody's contradicted me on this yet, is the first and still only joint industry television audience currency in the world to provide transparency on a form of dynamic ad insertion. Since Sky launched its AdSmart service, BARB has ensured that advertisers aren't charged when their ads are displaced from a linear schedule in favour of an ad served locally from the set-top box. And we also report the total number of commercial impacts that have been delivered to AdSmart advertisers. Now, we don't provide the trading currency, so this is an example of how BARB's viewing figures are increasingly available for planning purposes, but not necessarily as part of the core trading currency. This is one of the dualities that the BARB has to contend with as we plan for the future. We need, and another duality is we need device data to complement the strengths of people data to come from our panel. And the AdSmart example is a good one because our customers expect us to provide comprehensive viewing figures in a world where there is no longer one trading model. So our future is about being both a trading currency and a planning currency. And we have to innovate whilst cherishing the strengths of what we have already have in order to maintain a stable trading currency. That said, another thing the internet has introduced is a creed for speed. So perhaps the biggest duality BARB has to deal with is how do we develop our service in a way that's both fast and right? The reality is BARB can't lower our gold standard. So being right for us is paramount. Thank you for giving me 20 minutes of your life.